Well, thanks for joining us for a couple minutes here and kind of an afterthought, if you will, from Sunday, looking at Romans chapter 10 and kind of wrapping it up and looking at Paul's thoughts there. That was that great chapter, where you see this TNT, Romans 10, 9, and 10, right? Confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord, believe in your heart God raised him from the dead, and you will be saved. And then he makes this comment after that, verse 13, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. So you love this universal availability, right? So in order to have it available to you, here we go, last week's content, someone has to tell you about it. So he poses this dilemma that I would have said just a few more things about. He poses this dilemma, like how are you going to call on someone that you don't believe in, and how would you believe in him if you've never heard of his name? And however you're going to hear of his name if no one talks to you about him? And how is anyone ever going to talk to anybody if nobody goes to anybody? So you unwind this argument that Paul lays out, and he says you got to go. You have to be sent. How are they going to go unless someone sends them? So that people are sent, and when they're sent, they have a message, and when they have a message, people hear it, and when they hear it, it gives them an opportunity to believe. And if you believe on Jesus, it gives you that opportunity to call upon him and their salvation. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. So I would have spent just a few more minutes on, so what does that look like now, not outside, because I think our minds always go outside, and I reference some outside things. When I came to know Christ in the workplace, because someone taught me about Jesus. They mentioned his name. You have a Bible study over your house. You say something at school. You go do something at work. You have all these venues and opportunities, including playing pickleball with somebody or walking a trail with someone. But it's always these outside opportunities. And I failed to mention maybe one of the most important, which is inside opportunities. So opportunities to tell people about Jesus who maybe haven't quite heard yet, so that they might hear and call on him and believe. And I would have said that in the context of the way we function inside the body of Christ, the way we teach each other. Someone comes in, they're visiting, they jump into a class, they go to a small group. A family comes, they bring their children, and their children go to a Sunday school class. And in the Sunday school class, quite often, they're going to hear about Jesus for the first time. How beautiful are the feet in the Sunday school class that teaches about Jesus. That was one of my first volunteer roles, and I loved it. It was teaching second grade. I loved second grade. I did fourth and fifth grade for a while, then moved to second grade, and teach these little ones about Jesus and watch them respond in a certain measure of innocence. It was a beautiful thing. Listen to what Paul says here about this very thing in Galatians chapter 6. And this is verses 9 and 10. It will hone this in for you. And he says this. He says, let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. In other words, he says, especially, man, you think about doing something good for somebody, and then he tells the church, the Galatian church in this case, especially those who are in the midst of the church, who are the household of faith, as he references that. So I would encourage you and challenge you, think deeply about how God might use you to be those very feet who take the good news, and don't think about necessarily having to take them far away. You take them here. Bring them here. We need to hear it here. I think of our little ones in particular. How beautiful would your feet be if you're bringing the good news to these little ones, where you get to share Jesus and watch what God can do. He does great things that way. Be encouraged, and I pray also be challenged that way.